need to call this meeting to order. The January 15th school board meeting is 6 p.m. Before we do our moment of silence, I would like to recognize Mr. Leroy Christian, a custodian at Amelon Elementary School. He passed away unexpectedly during the holiday break, so we want to keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. So let's please stand for a moment of silence, and we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. First item tonight is reorganize the board. We need to elect a chairman. Is there a motion to elect a chairman?
I make a motion for Chris Terry to remain as chairman.
All right. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mr. Terry, get the gavel back.
Oh, ready.
Look at you.
Look at you.
Don't do it.
Take a picture, take a picture.
So, Board, thank you very much for your vote of confidence there. Now we need to elect a vice chair. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I nominate David Childress for vice chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motions at hand? Okay, calling the vote. All in favor? Aye. Hearing none opposed. Okay. Mr. Childress?
Thank you, Abby. Have to move now. Yeah, we slide that way. That's gonna how it's gonna feel. Wow, this feels like a step backwards maybe. I'm not certain, but it's forwards.
Thank you.
Oh, you're keeping the chair?
Yeah, I kept the chair.
Yeah.
I'm taking both the water.
Brittany came up there, I just. Here we go, Miss Mom, so I'm not chair for you. It's my chair now. I'm so happy to be back on the end. I ain't told you.
You get to go first.
Well, I know, but I can also leave too. Nobody notices me.
Ms. Thompson, I would like to thank you for your help in the last couple of years being vice chair. Thank you very
Certainly.
much.
Glad to do that. Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on to 3.0, public comment. We do have one person who has signed up to speak tonight. Mr. Porter, would you step forward, please? Name and address, please. Thank you.
Jack Porter, 478 Woodies Lake Road.
Is it on?
There you go. You're on.
I'm glad someone helps me speak into the microphone. At this first meeting of the calendar year, I would like to propose the following. My concern is that this is a public meeting, and therefore I believe that the very setup of this meeting area needs to be more conducive for the public to participate fully. Looking at the back of the heads of the personnel of the school district for as long as these meetings tend to go, I believe is not helpful to or respectful of the public. I do perceive and believe that this room setup is not intentionally designed to do so, but the truth is it does. Therefore, I propose this setup for this meeting space. Dr. Wells and his administrator have a table with a microphone just to the left of where you all speak. The remaining personnel would be seated in a public area. All speakers except for Dr. Wells would speak from the podium. The public would be seated in rows in front where you are seated with no obstruction of seeing or those of hearing challenges to be able to read lips. This enables the public to see all faces and have a better opportunity to hear what is being spoken. I have appreciated the efforts of the technician, administration, and school board members to speak more clearly and distinctly into microphones. As leaders, you are entrusted with the duty and have the responsibility of serving us, the citizens of this county. And you do so well. However, I believe that you have an imperative to make this meeting as fully conducive and inviting to the public as possible. Dr. Wells and his staff report to you, but they also report to us because we're the public. We are the citizens. We are the shareholders. You get to see their faces. We do not. To have a meeting where the shareholders look at the back of heads of those who are imparting important information is not helpful or courteous. My proposal, which I have shared with some of you privately, would speak to this concern. The ways that you listen to our concerns and proposals, I believe, need to be improved upon. I appreciate the ways that I can see your faces and you can see mine now. I do appreciate the ways that Dr. Wells and his staff, when entering into a private conversation with me and other shareholders, look at the speaker, listen, and interact. I urge you as school board members not to be satisfied with the way that this room has been set up for quite some time. You can do better, and I urge you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So Mr. Porter was the only one listed on the books. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak? Okay, come forward, please.
Hi, good evening, board. Sam Soger, District 2 parent. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. Y'all, so the stuff that's been going on the last couple months with the letter to the Virginia School Board Association, some of the comments around all this stuff has been offensive. And I don't know if y'all realize it's offensive. Maybe it's not on purpose, and that's fine. But just know it comes off as offensive to some of us shareholders, that this stuff about like institutionalized racism doesn't exist or something, or maybe I feel like there's some attitude that like we don't want to acknowledge that. Well, folks, it's just a statistical fact. It's just an unfortunate reality. And, you know, with the history of everything, it's actually not surprising or anything that it's a thing. So I just feel like a lot of this stuff with the school board association letter is just a waste of time and a waste of our resources and a waste of these administrators' time. It's like they got an important job to do, educating these children, and it's a huge undertaking. And I feel like the school board should be focused on just making sure that these schools are funded. You understand that they have the adequate personnel. What we think about these policies is really neither here nor there. You know, when you're actually on the ground in the schools, these are not the issues. You know, the issues are reading and writing. We got to get these test scores up. We got to get these students ready for the real world. And that's what we ought to be focused on. These issues, whether it's about race or gender, these are not the issues in the school buildings day in and day out. The issues in the school buildings day in and day out are, do they know how to read? Do they know how to write? And I really would love for you all to just be focused on that. It came up in the last meeting that it is about politics. Well, it shouldn't be about politics, and you know that I'm someone who's pretty heavily involved politically, but I would be so ashamed to bring that to you all, to bring politics into this. I'm coming here as a parent. I just need the school system to give my kid the best education possible. And I don't care what the VSBA thinks or doesn't think, or what the governor thinks about Amherst or the new president thinks about Amherst. It's just neither here nor there. What's important is that we just focus on the basic stuff. And from our perspective as parents, and I'm here not just representing myself, as you know, but as a member of the PTO, I'm involved. I'm here representing a lot of parents. We want you focused on the real issues, which is just making sure our kids get the best education. There was a comment about, school was better, and the school system was better in the 70s, that the things went bad in the 70s. You realize it's like offensive, like the schools were segregated before the 70s. Is that what we're suggesting? What I mean to say is, let's just think about what we're saying in these meetings and how it might come off to a significant portion of our population here in Amherst. Okay, really appreciate the work that y'all do, but it's got to be a bit much the last couple meetings. These meetings are 4-hour-long meetings, and let's just focus on the important stuff instead of getting into this political stuff. Okay, thank you for your time. Peace and love.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the audience like to approach the podium? Okay. All righty, I'm seeing none, so we'll move on to 4.0.
4.0. yes.
Presentation?
Yes, sir. We have a presentation on the Verizon Wireless Tower. Dr. Hoden, introduce our guest.
So we have a presentation. So board, this is Nathan Holland from, actually not Verizon, right? Yeah, Verizon.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Lori Schweller. I'm an attorney with Williams Mullen in Charlottesville, and we represent Verizon Wireless. Nathan, of course, is with GDN Sites, and he is the one who's been in touch with Mr. Hoden.
The one today.
The top one.
This one? Yeah. Yes. That one. There we go. Yes. Okay. Oh, great.
Thank you very much.
I'll hand that to you, Lori. I'll let
Okay.
you drive.
All right. All right. So we're here today to give you more information about the lease proposal that Nathan has spoken with Mr. Hoden about, and to answer your questions so that we know whether or not you'd like to move forward with the lease on the property. So just starting out, typical Verizon Wireless lease terms. The company typically leases a small area on the property, up to 100 by 100. It varies for the ground equipment and the monopole. And the typical lease is 5 years with 4 5-year renewals for a total of 25 years. We're proposing a 195-foot monopole with antennas, and that ideally would be available to other wireless providers so that you could have service in the area from multiple providers. The compound with the equipment is fenced and secure, and you wouldn't have anyone coming to the school property except a technician very irregularly, maybe 6 to 8 times a year. The property that has been proposed is here. This map is intended to show you the closest Verizon Wireless sites to the proposed locations. You can see how there's sort of an empty space that is lacking voice, data, internet service. So that could be filled by having a site here on the middle school property, just there in the wooded area, roughly 850 feet from the school building itself. You can see here the zoning map for the property and surrounding areas. The school property is zoned P1, and under the Amherst County Code, property that's zoned P1 is desirable for wireless facilities. That's a Tier 1 property. So property that's owned by the government or property that's zoned P1 is a top-tier location for wireless facilities. And so we could proceed with that with a special use permit by going to the Planning Commission and then the Board of Supervisors. All of the area surrounding the school property is zoned residential, and so wireless facilities are not permitted in that area. So you can see how that would present a challenge to providing good wireless service when you can't locate cell towers in the area. So this is ideal. This is just a closer look at the location of the proposed site in relationship to the school, and some photographs to give you a sense of where on the school property that would be located. The intent is to be away from school activities, so it wouldn't interfere with school activities or the intent for the future for that property. This is just an example of what a monopole wireless facility tower looks like. This is an existing tower in Louisa County, so it's just a single pole and with antennas located on it. This is an example of what the ground equipment looks like, and you probably wouldn't see that because it would be surrounded by a fence. In this case, it's a board-on-board fence and landscaping. So oftentimes when we make proposals to school boards, the first question asked is this safe for our students? Is this safe for our children? And we want to provide you whatever information you need, any questions you or the parents might have about this issue. FCC, Federal Communications Commission, does regulate RF emissions from all wireless facilities and has established standards for those RF emissions. These are non-ionizing emissions. They don't affect the cellular structure of the human body, but there are maximum emissions levels, and towers like this typically emit thousands of times less than what that maximum is, and that is regulated by the FCC. And so I don't know if you're able to see this entire slide, but the standards that have been adopted by the FCC are based on peer-reviewed scientific studies done around the world. And these were adopted when the Federal Communications Act was initially put into place back in the 90s, and they have been revisited in the past 5 years because of 5G to make sure that the FCC was on top of the latest technology. So in summary, the scientific community has reached a consensus that cell towers like this do not have a detrimental effect on human safety. And again, the FCC regulates these. So we certainly do not expect that this would have a negative impact on your students. But we're happy to provide any information about that you need for your parents. So if you are interested in moving forward with this lease after the discussion tonight, the next steps are listed here. Nate would work with your staff to develop a detailed set of drawings for this proposed lease area. We would start our application for the special use permit to get governmental approval, as well as all of the federal regulatory approvals. And then, of course, Nate would move forward with the lease agreement negotiations with you all. So we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Board, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Could you show me the map of, the first map, I think, is of the area that it would cover?
That one?
Is that,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because I know there's poor reception there on 130 behind the Food Lion there, and I was wondering if that would help in that area. That's what I was trying to see. Because it's an industrial park that doesn't have very good cell service.
Yeah.
Lion is
The Food Lion's right in that corner. The industrial park is right behind it. toward the top and center,
Right under the proposed.
clear it off.
Yeah.
The left
Yeah.
proposed.
Yep.
But that's not where the.
That's where the tower is going.
I was going, I was just wondering what the reach was.
It's typically 8 to 2 miles, but that also depends on terrain and, you know, and trees and any other thing that might block it. But,
Might be on the cusp of it.
yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. Board? Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the slide that I think shows the pathway? I think I saw where you're doing your
The
electrical
access
connection.
road.
Uh-huh. That one there, yep.
That one, okay.
So you're going to connect into the transformer that's already there, I guess, and come in off of that?
that would be the intent, but we'd also have to meet with the power company
Sure,
to see,
sure.
you know. And the pathway, there's an existing drive, I think you can kind of see in one of the photos, and there's a gate. We'd go through that gate and hug the tree line as much as possible and all the way back to the where the proposed
So
site would be.
this, like the surface treated areas, you know, the parking lot, those, y'all would bore
Yeah,
under those areas as you're bringing in
yeah,
and bringing your fiber in?
Correct.
And then you would probably trench or plow, I guess, the rest of the fiber into the tower?
or bore, put a conduit in. It just depends on, you know, the best, what the construction.
Boring's
manager
really
thinks.
expensive, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, like on the, you know, where we have surfaces that we've paid to put down, that we're not going to be trenching or plowing through those, because, you know, even though you put them back, inevitably, there's
understand.
always going to be a rut or something there, so I want to make sure that in those cases, we do bore, so.
Okay.
Board, anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, can you go back to the picture where you show the monopole? Okay, the one you're proposing is 195 feet.
Yes.
How tall is this one?
That one is 195 feet. It might just be a little, from the angle that the picture was taken from, it might be, it doesn't look 195 feet, but that's definitely a 195-foot tower. If I got, maybe was back a little bit farther.
Okay, and the one you're proposing, will the arrays look like this one?
Yes. Yes.
So they're not extended, they're close mount?
That's, I would believe, a typical 12-foot face array, so you'd have,
So that's not the kind that's really close to the pole, but it's
Correct.
not the real long extended ones?
yeah, they usually stick off probably 4 or 5 feet from the pole, and then they extend 12 feet out. Usually one face is 12 feet wide.
Each of those triangles.
Triangles, each one
Yeah,
is 12
yeah,
feet.
yeah. Yeah, that's a
Okay,
good way
and
to
how many of
explain it.
those will be on that pole? Just the top?
Originally, there would just be one in carrier, which would be Verizon. And then we would, of course, if another carrier wanted to put equipment on it, they could also place equipment on it.
Okay, and
So
so
if-
there would be just different arrays as it goes down? as
Different
it goes
levels, yeah.
down?
Usually they're separated 10 feet apart vertically.
Okay. I noticed on one of the pictures you showed a stockade fence. On this one, you're showing a metal fence. What type of fence would be used?
Whichever you would prefer.
Okay. Then I know that this area, I don't know, Mrs. Saunders, whether it was going to reach that area you were talking about, but I'm sure it would help the Walmart area where there's a lot of people that need cell
Yes.
service. Any communication with the residents that are surrounding the school so far?
No, I've not had any of that communication. I think, Lori, that process with when we go through the county Board of Supervisors for approval, there would be a notification process.
We would start that then. We
Yeah.
typically don't start notifying or reaching out to neighbors before we have a lease in place. But once we know we want to file for governmental approval for the special use permit, then we'll start notifying neighbors, and then we'll set up a community meeting.
Okay, so if we were to approve a lease, and then it goes to the planning commission and the board of supervisors, the public has a chance to speak, that kind of thing, does the school board ever have any recourse? For example, if the people that are surrounding this are really opposed to it? For me, as a school, I want to be a good neighbor. and I want to maintain the relationships with the parents and the people in our community. If that was an issue, at what point does the school board have any say once we, quote, sign a lease?
So you're thinking, as you hear input from the parents, you might change your mind about
I could,
the lease?
personally. I mean, for example, if I decide to do this and this is going to impact the neighborhoods that are around there, I think, for me, the neighborhood needs to know that. I would like to hear from them before I sign a lease that is just a permanent lease, and there's no way to get out of that.
We could start that process, and then prior to you all agreeing and finalizing the lease, you could hear those comments from, any neighbors that might speak out
So
against it.
let me see if I'm going where you are. You're saying if we sign a lease and then the public goes, we don't want this tower here, we still have a lease lined up with Verizon. So they're looking at, well, the tower's not going to go there. Why would we still have to have a lease in place? So that's where I think that's where that's it.
And that makes a lot of sense, because being school board property, this is going to go through a public process. So we
Right.
certainly will have neighbor input all along the way. So this is a little bit different from a wireless facility on a private parcel. We will need to have engagement before that lease is signed.
Still not sure I have an answer to my question.
Mr. Terry and Ms. Thompson, the way I understand it is we can write that lease to however, so we could likely talk to our attorney, and I've talked to the county about that as well. So I think it would depend on how we wrote the lease. So if you'd like me to get more information before you vote on this, you could vote on it next month. I'd be glad to, if you guys would make some questions, I'd be glad to follow up on that.
And initially, I believe we're at 5-year increments on the lease, is that correct? So if you did agree to the lease for the first, and you heard public feedback during those 5 years, at the 5-year mark, you could say, we don't want to renew the lease, correct? Technically?
They would want some sort of commitment from you all, because these facilities are expensive to
Correct.
build. And so they wouldn't want you to come in 5 years and say, well, we don't want this anymore.
Okay,
So there would be some commitment on your end,
yes, sir.
if you're going to do it.
Okay.
And to that extent, with the commitment on our end, if we were to commit to this tonight, which I personally would not like to commit to it tonight until I saw a lease, but if we were to commit to it, then what commitment do we have? I mean, is it a
Well,
permanent commitment? Is it one that we can get out of? That's the question I asked, and I don't believe I've gotten a clear answer yet.
So tonight, there's no commitment that you have to make. I think tonight is more of providing you with some information, and then before we begin any due diligence and engineering services, we wanted to hear from you all and say, yes, we're willing to consider this and move forward with this. And then I can work with staff on an agreement, we can come up with a design plan, and then we can bring it back to you, and you all can vote on it and say, yes, let's move this forward. And that, takes several months. It's not a quick process. So, and then concurrently, we can reach out to county staff about, an application and providing, maybe public comment. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I hope that answers your question. Is that?
I also believe that for the tower, when it was proposed for Eland, the school board held a public comment session as well. So we could, if we get to that point during this process that we want public input, we could advertise for a public comment for the school board to hear from the community before we put anything forward to the county. So you could hear that first. That way it might help you before you help make that decision. And then we could also move forward from there.
Well, I do think that it's an area that's definitely needed, and I think that it's a good opportunity. But in the same vein, I want to walk carefully.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that, yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question for Ms. Scheller, is that correct? Did I say your name right?
Schweller, yes,
Schweller,
thank
okay,
you.
good. Do you know why cell towers are not allowed on residential properties?
That's a zoning. But
Okay, well, because Here's why. I'm looking and I'm seeing just in the last couple of years, there was a school in Michigan where the tower had to be taken off because of public concern on safety issues. The Freedom High School proposed tower 2 years ago. That there was a large public response to that. So I'm really glad to hear that prior to signing a lease, the school board is going to have an opportunity to hear from the taxpayers in our community. There are even some organizations that are seeking to ban cell towers on school property. There are lots of things I like about the government, but I'm not necessarily trusting their opinion that it's safe because they're not always looking at the little person. So that reassures me to know that I would not be comfortable as an individual signing or voting for a lease on the property without our constituents having ample time to review and voice and interact.
We certainly appreciate that, and we hope we can have plenty of interaction with the community. To answer your question, I think historically, cell towers weren't allowed in residential areas because of the way they looked. And when cell towers first came along back in the 80s and 90s, they were, it was a different technology, and they could serve much broader areas. Now we have everyone using them, different technologies. As Nate said, they serve, 1.5 to 5 miles, depending on what the technology. So you really need them everywhere. And so to have a huge residential area where you can't have a cell tower means you will have people who don't have service. And so it's nice to have an area zoned for it in the middle of a residential area.
So I would, I kind of agree with Ms. Thompson. I'd like to know that our public feels comfortable with it going in before we do sign a lease. That way, we don't have a lease out there for nothing, So, but I do look forward to seeing how things progress.
Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir.
So as someone that is probably directly affected by the cell tower, and yes, it's definitely needed in the area. I can vouch for that. You say other companies will be using this tower. How long does that take after the construction of the tower's online, or does it happen during the construction process? Are there going to be other crews coming a month after the tower's built up online, installing their equipment, and then 3 months later another company comes in? How does that process work?
It's typically up to those other providers to identify an area that has a need. Verizon has identified this area that has a need. I can't speak for T-Mobile or, US Cellular or all those other ones because, maybe they have other areas in the state that they're identifying they have needs. It's something if they, have a need and they're like, oh, there's a tower there, they'll use it. I mean, usually the county will steer them towards the tower instead of like building their own structure.
Right, use what's there.
Yeah,
I mean, that
but
does
I don't
make
have
sense.
I don't have a,
Well, typically in the
Like
past, when was the last time the tower in Louisa County, when was the last time, is that serving only Verizon now, or is there somebody else on that tower?
To be honest, I don't know. It's been a while since I've taken that picture, so I haven't driven by that. But it could happen right away. It could be 6 years, 7 years down the road. It just depends on what those other carriers, the objectives they have. So I can't state for certain that you'll have T-Mobile and everybody else use that tower.
Right, so as far as we know, we can only get Verizon. I don't have Verizon service, so it probably wouldn't help me right away.
Yes.
Okay. And
You
so,
can complain to your, you can go and complain to your provider and say, hey, there's a tower here now, why don't you put some equipment?
or maybe Verizon can bring their prices down. But, so
Sales, not sales.
this evening you came here and presented this to us. What were you expecting to get from the board tonight?
So a consensus that you all are willing to consider this, that you would be willing to move to the next step would be for us to prepare some engineering documents and
Lease
lease
documents.
documents and the county, can start reviewing those documents. And then,
So tonight it would just be, hey, yeah, we're kind of interested in it, we
Yeah.
need some more information. That would give us the time for public input
yeah,
during this stage, and also during the lease process, if we wanted an out on the lease as far as, if our constituents don't want a tower, we can void the lease. After I understand there's a certain point where you gotta
Yep.
sign a lease to move forward,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
You're gonna have people invest money in it, they want reassurance that that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how good our lawyer is versus their lawyer, it's gonna depend on that lease and how it's written. If we pull out a lease, make sure we don't owe them money. You understand? I'm sure they understand how that works. And that was the other question. None of you here can write checks, because obviously we're not just gonna let you have the land. And when another carrier gets added onto it, I would like a portion of that lease also. I don't wanna just take the lease rights from Verizon and let them sell our lease out to other companies. So when we get into our lease, if they add T-Mobile, I want a percentage of that cut also. So if we write that up, want to keep an eye on that too. Because they'll make money off T-Mobile, and we're going to be sitting there saying, wow, we should have sold it to T-Mobile. Just saying.
So board, any other questions? Okay, so what is, I'll ask the consensus of the board. Do we want to proceed to allow people to look into it so we can have some public comment before we sign a lease? Is that how we proceed?
I would.
Okay, does that work for you guys for tonight?
yes.
That's excellent news.
That's excellent.
Thank you very much for considering.
We look forward to it progressing, and we are curious as to what our community has to say about it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Oh, don't forget your jump drive.
Okay, Dr. Wells, 5.0?
Yes, sir. 5.01 is you have A through G, and they cannot be made on one motion. That's basically appointing me and Ms. McNerney and so forth as clerk, deputy clerk, and so forth down the line. So you don't need to vote on each one independently. You can just make a motion that A through G be approved and make
Okay.
it in one swoop.
Are there any changes previously?
No, the same ones we have.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Okay.
Yeah, no changes.
So, board, you see what's presented in front of you? Excuse me. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve items A through G.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. None opposed.
Okay. Next, we have 5.02, have to appoint a representative to an alternate to Laurel Regional Board. And the current representative is Ms. Ligon, and the current alternate is Mrs. Justice.
Okay, so before we even get a motion, I'm just curious, would you two ladies care to continue, or would you like to step down?
I like Laurel myself. It's up to
Okay.
the board.
Okay,
Fine being alternate. I haven't,
okay.
Ms. Liggett is very faithful.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Have to do these one at a time?
Yes.
I make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Ligon to the Laurel Board.
Okay,
Second?
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. One more motion, please.
I make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Justice as the alternate.
Okay, we have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Check.
All right, thank you. 5.03, we need a delegate and alternate for the VSBA Annual Convention. This past year, you had Mrs. Ligon as the representative and Mrs. Justice as the alternate.
Here again, ladies, care to do it again, or?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to step down.
Okay, so let's do the first motion, please.
Make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Ligon as the VSBA delegate.
Okay,
Second?
all right, second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do need an alternate for Mrs. Ligon. Yes,
Actually, I make a motion, Mr. Chair, Lori Saunders be the alternate.
Okay.
Yes, be.
okay. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, Dr. Wells?
Thank you. 5.04, representative and alternate for the governor's school.
Okay. Currently,
Currently, you have Mrs. Justice as the primary and Mrs. Saunders as the alternate.
okay. Ladies, again? Okay. Okay, can I get a motion for the representative first?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we keep Dawn as primary.
Okay, we have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we need one for the alternate.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that Ms. Saunders be the delegate alternative to Central Virginia Gov School.
Okay, we have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank
Gov
you.
School? Now it's Tim.
5.05, representative and alternate to the STEM Academy. And currently, you have Mr. Childress as the primary and Mr. Arasi as the alternate.
Okay. Gentlemen?
You want to switch?
I'm good with whatever.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that over the past few years, I have not been able to serve on any of these,
Okay.
which has been fine. But if, Mr. Childress, since I know that you're going to have extra duties as vice chair, I would be happy to do part of the STEM, either as the rep or the delegate.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Okay.
Abby,
Look at you.
I motion that Abby takes the lead on the STEM Academy.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we need an alternate.
I make a motion that Mr. Rossi is the alternate.
I'd second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. As quick as we can. There you go. Okay. All righty. Thank you, sir. Moving on to 6.0.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our student representatives, and I know Mr. Carver cannot be here this evening because he is actually at church, and he sends his apologies. And
Amen.
so, Denasia.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm glad to be back here tonight, and we all enjoyed our extra week off, so thank you. So yesterday up at the high school, we had our second FAFSA night. Not too many people came, but the people who needed it came, and that's what's important. Coming up, we have our musical auditions on January 28th and 29th. That's sure to be very exciting. And the musical should be sometime in April, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. And also upcoming, at the end of this month, is an all-district band event. In this event, we will have students performing from Amherst County High School, Manelison Middle School, and Amherst Middle School. And over at Amherst Middle School, we have an FFA fundraising event on, I think, this weekend, if I'm correct. And it's 4 to 9 p.m. And there's also going to be a CVCC Gov School event come for the 6th and 7th graders to get them thinking about what they want to do when they get up to the high school. And on January 29th, there's going to be a spelling bee from 10 to 11.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Board, anything for our student representative tonight?
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the governor's school event for 6th through 8th graders. Do you know when and where that will be?
Or not they were visiting the Gov School, or if Gov School and CVCC kids were coming to see them. I saw it on the calendar and felt like it was important to mention.
Well, maybe staff can help.
We're going to them.
Going to see their facilities.
Our children are going
That's
Okay,
important.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, isn't that in our field trip forms? I think it's in there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Board, anything else? I would like to say that I did get to attend the play that they did recently, and as always, the plays are awesome, so you can pass that along to them.
And this will be the last musical in the current auditorium, because next year we'll be in the new auditorium. So come enjoy the last show in the in the old auditorium.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Denasia. All righty, Dr. Wells.
Next, we have the consent agenda.
7, okay, yep. Okay, Board, you've seen the consent agenda?
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
move for approval of consent agenda?
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, on the field trips that are overnight,
Yes.
are those going to be private accommodations, or how are the students?
They usually share rooms, but if there are situations where we need to do private accommodations, they will.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, there you go, Dr. Wells.
All right. Next, we have School Board Policy Committee. So last year at this time, the board wanted to do a policy committee, and it was a one-year committee. And so that year is up. And now the question is, do you want to continue that as another one-year committee? My recommendation would be a one-year committee, and as opposed to changing policy, where you'd have to change it into policy. So we can renew it every year based on the needs and desires of the board. So it would be another one-year recommendation to the policy committee. And then you have to appoint the members of that committee.
Okay. Do we appoint those in this meeting tonight?
It would be nice.
Okay, well, I'm just checking. I'm just making sure. So, Board, would you like to continue with the policy committee as it is, or make changes? Personally, I think going with the one-year policy committee works well. You ladies were on it this year. Things go well, so.
Mr. Chair, I thought that they went very well.
Okay.
When we met with staff, I thought we had wonderful conversations, able to just, understand one another. And it's sometimes difficult to do that here in this setting. So, questions that the board raised, questions that, we may have had, it just helped us to be able to get some of that out of the way. I thought they were very helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
You're certainly welcome to ask the administrative staff or Ms. Justice.
Okay. I would like to see you two continue if you are willing and able. Do you need a motion for that?
I need a
an
motion
appointment?
for the committee to be another policy committee for 1
Okay.
year.
Okay.
And then you can appoint whoever you want to appoint. I don't really need that to be formal.
Okay,
but
perfect.
Just,
So, Board, can I get a motion for the policy committee?
I make a motion that we continue the policy committee for the next year.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in, yes.
I'll just say that I really appreciated the interaction, the dialogue we were able to have on issues and get clarification and do research right there. Ms. McNerney and Dr. Wells were just fabulous in helping and facilitating that. So.
Okay. Any other discussion, Board? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
So we have a committee for the next year. Ms. Thompson and Ms. Justice, would you grace us by being on that committee?
I would.
Okay. Board, any other discussion? Okay, Dr. Wells?
All I can say is thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
It is a lot of work.
so consensus will be Ms. Thompson and Ms. Justice. And
Mr. Terry,
Yes, sir.
and a little note on that, I think that when we bring the board in for these meetings after, and I know we've had communication about the policies and stuff, but we got to make sure that the news gets to all the board members, when there's discussion on that. And I know it's hard because we have to be in a meeting setting, but there needs to be I guess, more of an effort of a one-on-one communication.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. All righty, Dr. Wells, where are we? 9?
next, we have item 9, administrative. We have update on administrative services. Dr. Hudden?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Terry, members of the board. So lots of things have happened over the last month or so. The snow did slow us down a little bit, but before we get to the high school projects, we also have several other things happening at the high school. Windows are just about completed. All the exterior windows were replaced. We have some exterior doors that are getting ready to be replaced, and then some camera systems in some of the elementary schools through the DCJS grant. So that's all going on as well. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rokes to start on with the cafeteria auditorium.
Good evening, members of the board. A lot of things have been going on in the last month or so. In mid-December, right before break, the rooftop HVAC units were delivered and installed, or put in place rather, up on the roof. As you can see, a lot of framing work has gone on inside. This is just partial. The picture on the left is going up Main Street, and that is on the wall on where the existing bathrooms and going into the existing auditorium. Gym is up there. Right in front of you, you will see the framing in the cafeteria area. So I'm standing in the cafeteria looking back toward the pupil entrance right there at the main part of the school where they used to come in at now. So, and that's changed a little bit in the last 2 weeks, actually. As noted on the left picture here is the, if you look back, and it's sort of hard to see, it's a little white area right in the center part of the picture. That is actually the light of the hallway. So what you're seeing here now is 2 new doorways in the new construction. So it'll be like a little vestibule, if you will, in between this section and where the old existing entrance doors of the school are. And that's what that wall is right there in front of you, where they just built this week, separating those 2 areas out. The area on the right is actually the end of the main street. It's up near the coach's office, and where you see the plastic hanging, that's the wall, the hallway to the right where the classrooms are. That is finally closed in. In the last 2 weeks, it's been a skating ring there, but if you see all this stuff just to the left side of the picture, that is actually ice where they scraped off the floor. But anyway, the roof is put on there now. They're in the process of actually been blowing off the roof up there, what's on there, and putting the main part of the roof on there. So that is finally getting closed in. The area to the left over there is, you can see the multitude of lifts in there working up in the ceiling area. And what they're doing is, on the right side of the picture, is actually installing the lights in the auditorium ceiling itself. So all those little white can areas you see up there, they're actually the new lights for the new auditorium. The picture on the left is I believe it's the course classroom. And some of the framework in there, and actually some of the painting has been done. If you look closely, it's sort of hard to tell. The primer coat is a white, and the finish coat is what they call a first gray. So on the right-hand side of the wall, you can see a little bit, and a little bit on the left, the difference in the tones there. But so it is the finish coat of paint being put on there as well. On the right picture, all the insulation on the piping going down the hallway where the classrooms are is what you're looking at there. And of course, this is the main part of the building. The significance of this picture is on the left side of the building, right next to the telephone pole and where the existing part of the building is, they finally finished that brickwork. So all the brickwork on the outside of the building is complete now. Also, the framework for the windows had just arrived yesterday. So they start framing those glass areas right there. Still going to be a few more weeks before the glass arrives, but the framework for the storefront and all this stuff has arrived too. Well, we keep getting. Okay, so we transition from there to the field house, or as you see in the final picture, the swampland nowadays.
Yeah.
Don't walk with open-toed shoes to the field house. So anyway, right now, the picture on the left is when they first start framing up the field house. This went up. Actually, the structure part went up in about 3 or 4 days, and so this is the first steel going up, as you can see in the right picture. The continuous steel installation and roof sections as well. Inside the building, looking up as the roof has gone on, and some of the side walls. And again, the picture on the right is basically looking out from the exterior view. As we progress through the construction part over the last week or two and over the holidays, obviously the building is completely up now, and this is looking inside the building. The left picture is from actually one of the restrooms up front. The opening you see to the left-hand side, that is concession stand opening, and then you're looking down through the entire field house here. And then the other picture on the right is actually looking from the other end, looking back that direction as well. So it's a very beautiful building inside. Right now, of course, it's insulation stuff, but I was talking to the manager from Jamerson Lewis this afternoon. He and I were out there looking after a construction meeting, and he was just, he knew it was a big building, but when he walked in, he was just like, man, this is amazing. And compared to some other college projects he's worked on. So we're very impressed with that. Obviously, this is before it snowed. This is standing on the infield of the baseball field. You're right, just standing on the before the infield, looking back. And as you see, it's sort of Lancer color. It's got the gray roof, the burgundy sides on it. So it's a very impressive building where it sits back there as well. And then, like I said, don't walk back there with open-toed shoes or anything you want to run right now. It's a little wet back there. So anyway, this is the building just a few days ago. As you see, most of the exterior doors are up. The roll-up doors are not in yet, but they were actually back here closing in the other doors with plastic today because the plumber's going to start next week doing the rough in for the plumbing work, followed by some electrical work and things like that as well. So from a project standpoint, in the main part of the building, again, mechanical, electrical stuff will continue to work on that. They're in the process now working through getting the HVAC units hooked up. The goal there is to have the new HVAC units running by sometime in February as a temporary heating service. And we also have, going through the contract on that as far as the procedures they need to use and the filters they need to use to protect our equipment. And the other aspect of that, we'll use these resources to help heat the building, get things worked out of any bugs in the system, so when they turn it over to us, all this worked out. But at the same time, our warranty and things like that do not take effect until we take delivery of the whole building. So even though those units are running, our warranty does not start until they turn it over to us. So we got ourselves covered as far as that respect goes. And again, just inside framing, they'll start framing out here in the next week or so in the field house for these concession stands and bathrooms and those things as well. A lot of work going on inside to make sure we hit our May goal. So, any questions?
Board, any questions?
It's very impressive, taking shape. So,
Are we putting any type of technology out there at all, by any chance?
yes,
So
we're running fiber out there.
Perfect. Okay.
And Joe Gold and I have been working on that together. The game plan is when we trench around from the existing weight room for our water and everything like that, we're going to run dual pipes. We've been talking with our provider for cabling, everything for that too. So that is a plan to do that as well.
Good.
Okay. Board, anything else?
And just a quick reminder, that building is 60 by 120, but the large portion with the cages and where pitching can occur, that's going to be 60 by 75. So we're looking right now for some product to put down, like an indoor turf to put down for the baseball, softball folks, so that they can have that large area to do their batting and pitching.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Next.
Okay. I know that a few of you will be very happy with this, but we have to make some changes in our discipline board. So I would like to first thank all of you that served on it first semester. I know we were busy at some times, but for second semester, Ms. Ligon, Ms. Justice, and Mr. Childress will be my three go-tos, with Mr. Terry serving as kind of a sub when he needed to step in. So I will be in contact with you on when that will happen.
Probably soon.
Let's hope not, but we had a busy week, so I appreciate everything on that. Any questions on that?
Board, any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. 9.02, excuse me, student suspensions for December. You have that report? Any questions on that?
Board, none? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. 10.0, Dr.
Next, we
Wells.
have 10.0 with 10, and that'll be Ms. LaConch with finance.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before you tonight are your December financial reports. As we discussed before, we did receive the updated calc tool that came out on January 7th. For the current school year, adjustments were made for the lower ADM and the sales tax that was trending
lower than the original state projections. The new sales tax projections and the ADM do seem to be more in line and more realistic, so that was promising. The net difference, though, however, is a decrease this year in state funding of $222,484. Both of these items were something that was on our radar. We have discussed it before, so we really weren't surprised. It was actually good to get it into the calc tool to see what it was going to look like from the state's perspective. As stated before, we still have the areas of the surplus and the VRS, and if needed, we still have the surplus and the fuel lines. So we do have a plan for that. So that's on your revenue side. On your expenditure side, we have the object code summary. There are two I wanted to point out that were showing overages, and that is on page 1, the 3120, the other professional services. That one is showing over budget by $224,182. The supplemental appropriations that you have approved this evening for the school security and the school-based mental health, those grants are contracted services that already have an expenditure, so that will cover those overages. The other overages is on page 4, where it's showing that the federal program is over budget. And also, that's the same situation where the Stronger Connection Grant, which is a federal grant, is being appropriated, and that will cover that deficit. Before we talk about year 2, do you have any questions about this year's December reports?
Board, any questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you've explained the textbook materials before, but when can we expect to see some of those funds transferred to cover some of this?
That's going to be in the next supplemental appropriation. I need to get I don't want to go numerous times to pull from that reserve, so I was waiting to after the first half, and then we can project what we're going to spend the second half, because we have to pull it from the county's reserves, and I just didn't want to do it more than once.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Conich.
Thank you.
You want to hit this year's?
Okay, so that calc tool is a 2-year calc tool, and it did show for next year. Initially, when we were doing the budget last year, it did have that year 2 was going to have a revenue increase. However, the calc tool is projecting a even lower ADM for next year. So our ADM projection originally for this year is 3712.9. They're projecting for next year 3615.25, which is 97.65 reduction. So where we were anticipating initially to have an extra $600 and some thousand, we're actually looking at less state money next year in the governor's proposed than we get this year. And we still have the 3% raise that is required to accept that compensation money. We still have the House and Senate version. It usually is better than the governor's. However, this is what we have to work with, and we sort of consider this the worst case scenario, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to be hopeful that it improves, but we're going to be prepared and working with those numbers.
So as we move as we're working through the process, just know we're looking at all options, and then we will have something for you in February. We are asking for a meeting with our chair and vice chair, now we know who they are, to meet with the county chair and vice chair, the board of supervisors, and the county administrator, so we can start having some conversations. I'm going to reach out to Mr. Bryant tomorrow and see if there's some dates in the next couple of weeks we can get together and have a meeting, so we can start letting them know kind of where we are from the governor's budget and what we may need to come up with them for and requests for funds. But also we're going to work through our side to make sure that we're looking at every possible place for funding.
Okay. Board, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important, given, that we might have to do a little tightening of our belts, that it's important for us to look at maybe the trend of our enrollment, the trend of our staffing, maybe disaggregated somewhat, and we can talk about maybe what that might look like. But I think that's sort of important for us to just sort of get an idea of where we've been over the last few years. I know with all the grant money and things that we've gotten, there's been some cushion there. But if we're having to tighten our belt, I think we need to at least know where we are.
Okay. Board, anything else?
Well, as we're thinking about tightening our belt, I mean, how do you guys feel? How do you feel about it, Ms. LaCondish, about where, with that decrease, 200 some thousand?
It's definitely not
less?
something we wanted to experience. Now, in our internal projections, we're not projecting it to be that significant of a decrease. However, it's, it would be a gamble to override the state numbers and hope that our projection is right. So we are truly, we met yesterday, we are going through every single line, every single position to see if there's anything that hasn't been used that, so it's definitely, we're being very intentional to go through everything. We are, now that we've had the 1 year of the VRS, that hybrid separation, which it used to be that your VRS, you had a single rate. When they separated it, you have some of your employees that get one rate, another, and your other set has a range of rates. So this was the first year where we had to experience that. So we now have some baseline data. That's why we have a VRS surplus this year to deal with the revenue shortfall for this year. But we're going to now have that, some data, and be able to absorb that. We're looking internally first to see what we can do. Do I think it's going to be a challenging budget? Absolutely, especially if the next versions do not provide more funding. We aren't alone in this. Other school divisions are facing the same obstacles. So hopefully they'll listen to, they'll hear us, and we're not going to be dealing with this worst case scenario.
So with the apartments, new apartments that are in Madison Heights, are we seeing any increase, fluctuation with enrollment with?
Not necessarily. Most of those, in those apartments that were built are more transient. They're more college-age students. When the housing developments start coming in, I think we're going to see more of an increase in actual, single-family housing. I think you'll see more of an increase then affecting our enrollment. But the apartments right now is more of a college age, more of a transient population, so we're not really seeing an increase in those two apartments that are open.
Okay. Board, any other questions?
If I, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
If I understand you correctly, the 200,000 difference, it's not a surprise because you were anticipating that.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
600,000 for next year, right? That's based on a decrease in enrollment. Is that correct?
That's based on the state projection that our enrollment will be lower, correct?
Okay. Now, when we look at what was projected last year and what actually happened, how close were they?
As far,
Enrollment.
Yeah. Because that's what our ADM is based on.
yeah, it was like 15 or 16.
About 15 or 16 students, the board was actually under, and we had that many kids come back
Okay.
in.
So
So
We were
you
higher.
actually projected the way that you should have to keep.
you project it lower.
Okay, good.
But I just wanted to clarify, I just want to make sure I heard, it's mentioned 600,000 shortfall. So we were expecting to get an additional 600,000. The
Yeah.
calc tool is actually reducing us 93,000. So,
From this year's budget.
compared to what the budget was for this current year.
Again, that's based on the governor's projections. That's his proposed. The General Assembly will, they'll start having their budget conversations now. They're back in session. And sometime mid-February to late February, they will have their budget projections and where they feel they will be. And then the new calc tool will come out once a budget is passed, and it'll just be back and forth. That's why we're waiting, until March to really have our serious conversations with the board. I'll have my budget prepared in February, but we will start having those conversations once we kind of have a better idea of what the House of Delegates are going to be doing.
Okay. Board, anything else for Mr. Connage or Dr. Wells? Okay. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, Dr. Wells.
Next, we have 11, instruction of Dr. Norman.
Thank you. So you have two presentations loaded up on board docs. One that I'm getting ready to go through, that's about 8 or 9 slides. That is for the public. It's all about division data, doesn't really get down into the nuts and bolts of subgroups. But then the other presentation, it's 57 slides, and it is very, very detailed, very specific school, and it disaggregates every kind of data imaginable. If you want to go into that further, please feel free to give me or Dr. Wells a call, and we'll take you step by step through that longer version. But this is just our winter data. There's some things that I want to be able to just remind you when we came in and showed you our fall data. 3rd through 8th grade, once again, took the winter growth assessments in reading and in math. The winter administration was on current grade level, current standards that were the SOL test. However, it covered, remember, it covered the entire year. So these kids have only been instructed on half of that test right now. But they took the full test because we're treating it as not just a summative test to tell us where they are, but a formative test to help our teachers kind of map out what it is that they're going to do over the next 45 days with these children, to really be intentional with the instruction. The next thing that I'd like for you to remember is that we also did a local Amherst County Public Schools created by each subject area for any grade level or any content that will be tested in an SOL test at the end of the year. So the reading and the math were for elementary and middle school, but we also did history and science tests in those grade levels, and we also did all high school EOC courses. And we have those scores for you too. And none of these were used as grades in the grade book. This was just for us as teachers and us to help students see what they were trying to prepare for the end of the year. Data considerations, what I'm going to show you is worst case scenario because it's all on raw pass rates. I want to make sure you understand that data collection was done by some students, but we had several things that experienced where students took the test in the winter, didn't take it in the fall. Those were counted as a no improvement. Students with disabilities who are taking a VAP, which is not a standardized test, they counted in our overall count, but they counted it as no improvement and as like not passing that test. And so this is worst case scenario. Students without some students in our grades 4 through 8, they passed their SOL test in the spring of last year, but coming into this year, they have shown no growth. Or they didn't move a band, and because they didn't move a band, they still passed the SOL, but they're showing as needing support or being at risk. So we're taking worst case scenario because that bubble kid that, 1 or 2 questions may get him over the pass, but then 1 or 2 questions that he may miss may have him fail. So we're really targeting those at risk kids. This is the red, yellow, and green. Red, these are the ranges for our fall and winter growth assessments by grade level 3 through 8 that the state has developed. Red, of course, needs additional support. Yellow is that they are at risk, and then green is for those students that are well prepared. So when we go into the division elementary overall, this shows you information in regards to the overall scores. In the first column there, it's the fall, so you can compare what was done at the fall to what we just went through in the winter. I want to be able to just point out a couple of highlights so you kind of get the gist. And then when you go through it, if you have any questions in regards to it, I'll be more than happy. to answer those. In regards to the reading, we had a 4% increase from our yellow and red into our green. So our green, well-prepared, increased by 4% in our grades 3, 4, and 5 for reading. In math, we showed a 10% growth from those that needing support, those kids that failed, were in the red zone, shifting over into at risk where they could possibly have either been a pass or they've moved from one range to another, which was a significant growth. That's in both reading and math. When we get into science and history, science 5th grade, we saw a 16% increase for those students that are well prepared, meaning they grew into that green. So we can pretty much say that those kids are going to pass that SOL because, remember, they were only assessed on the full year's curriculum, but we assessed them only half of it. I mean, we taught them only half already. And then in history, we had a 5% growth from needing support over in that red band into at risk in a yellow band. And some of them significant growths, specifically in history, going from a 2.91 well prepared all the way up to 19% in that well prepared. When you talk about middle school overall, I'm going to show you those same items. Fall over in the left-hand corner, winter in the right-hand column. And when we talk about in reading, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we saw a 5% increase in well-prepared. As when you go into math, math is really where we showed some significant gains. But I do want to remind you for our SOL scores last year, we had huge dips in our math scores for middle school, specifically that 6th and 7th grade. So we've done some very intentional things at those grade levels. We still have a lot of room to grow, but we're moving in significantly in the right direction. When you look at science, we saw a 12% increase into well-prepared, with 21% movement from that need support, those kids that were failing in the red band, all the way up into the yellow band. So there was movement across all bands in the area of science. When we look at history, this was another one that was that really stood out and moved quite a bit, and they had a 20% increase moving over into well prepared. So they're sitting significantly higher than they were starting out the school year.
So, Dr. Norman, so on the math,
Yes.
looking at 6th grade, are we saying that 2% of our 6th graders are well prepared?
2% currently right now have moved a band and are considered well prepared.
So 2% moved up or 2% overall of that grade?
2% shifted up.
2% shifted up.
Moving that 31%, so you have literally about 35-40% that, and you also have to take into consideration too that we had 4-5% that did not take the test as well, and they count in as zeros as well. So 6th grade and 7th grade, we're still working very diligently in those grades for math. That transition from 5th to 6th is brutal. Any other questions on that middle school or elementary?
I'd like to,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to sort of ask the same question that Mr. Childress asked. And so if I'm looking at the green that he referenced, it says in the fall that they were well prepared.
1%.
Right. And there
For
was-
6th grade, are you talking
For
about 6th grade?
Okay.
Yes.
So when I went over to the winter, it says 2.7%. So that, to me, when I'm reading it, is the percentage of the students that are well prepared.
Correct.
Correct.
Not the number of students
Not
that
the number.
moved.
Correct. I'm going to show you, I'm sorry, I'm going to show
Okay.
you the movement
Okay.
as
But
well.
we went from 78% in the red to 61% in the red, so it did make a
Correct.
bigger jump from the
You've
red.
got growth going on,
Correct,
yes.
yes, ma'am.
Right.
Right.
But I
and
was
it's-
just trying to figure out how to read that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, so I go back to my question then, make
Sorry.
sure I fully understand it. So we are saying only 2%
2%
of our sixth graders.
of our sixth grade students who took this test are considered well prepared, including all the kids that received a 0 because they didn't take it, or all the kids that for VAP and a number of things.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
it's a very surprising number.
It is.
But I think
I-
it's important to see the 31% that were in
Yeah.
that middle range.
I am encouraged
So-
because these are, when I look at that 2%, I see that these are kids that will be in those advanced classes because they've already mastered the content, the full year content of a sixth grade math class. Right, because the
Even though
test
it's
was on the entire year.
Right.
We only have taught half of the year, so these kids could technically be sitting in a seventh grade class right now. I could give them a seventh grade test, and they would probably do pretty well. What I'm very excited about is the growth that we're seeing from kids who just flat out failed it at the beginning of the year to now we have those kids that are on par because they're getting at least half of that test where they're scoring high in half of the test. They've only been taught half of it.
Dr. Norman,
Mm-hmm.
I want to stop you for a second and go back to fourth grade math. Do we know what happened there?
Let me get back. Fourth grade math, we have had going, I'd have to give you some specifics that I probably should not give you
I
in
was just wondering
public.
if we have a root cause, and there's definitely a reason
Yes,
for
sir.
that. Okay.
There are some in 3 different schools. There are some personnel, family medical leave, resignations.
I just want to make sure we had a root
Yes.
cause and we are aware of it.
Addressing it.
Addressing
Yes,
it.
sir.
Yes, sir.
In high school, when we look at our high school, I can't, making sure I'm getting it right. More in that reading area, more moved from that needs support to at risk, going from 50.63 to down to a 46. So not as many failing that. And then going from 23 down to 20% in the green, that well prepared. But as you go through that 11th grade EOC test, the harder standards are in that first part of the year, and then you're cyclical through the rest of the year. So they're going to pull that back and kind of run through that again. I thought we would have more well-prepared at that 11th grade green. So I'm not too concerned, but that is something that Mr. Crawford and I have already discussed. When we look at our math, we really did show some improvements across the board overall, 26% growth from needs support into the at-risk, so from red, where they were coming in very weak, and then we've moved them into the next band. Still, of course, we've gone from no student was well prepared in the area of math, hitting those state designated benchmarks in the fall, but we've moved into close to 10% now into the winter. He's had a lot of remediation going on as well in those classes. When we look at science, science has been an area that we have been concerned with over several years, going from 74% into the red band to 61%, but moving close to double of well-prepared, 7%, 28 kids to 49 students are well-prepared and could take the test tomorrow and pass it. We have seen a steady growth across the board in science, and something very similar in regards to history. 15% increase in students that are considered well prepared, going from 14 to 29% in that world geography and Virginia U.S. history. Now, this is where you were asking about what does that look like in ranges. Make sure I'm getting there. So when we look at vertical scaled scores and improvement, they pulled and this is just for our student growth assessments from VDOE. They pulled how many students moved an entire range. So when we do vertical scaled scores, they actually have to show you from at a third grade level, they may have been in the yellow, but when they sitting at fourth grade, that same score is a red, and they've got to move all the way over into the yellow or the green. So this is just telling you that out in reading for third grade, we had 177 students across the division out of that 287 actually improve in their vertical scaled scores, meaning that they may not have passed the test if we gave them the test on that Virginia growth assessment, but they showed an improvement on a test that had a full year's worth of content. And very pleased with our fifth grade going from up into 127. One of the things that Dr. Wells and I talked about when we were going through it, I will pull the information so you have a comparison, the slide that we did for you at the beginning of the year. So you can say we only had 70 some that were considered improvement at the beginning of the year from the SOL test to our to our fall, and then you can see 177 improved in the winter. One of the things that I'll put on there too is that, remember, we had a regression at the beginning of the year because we saw that summer slide with our students, especially in our elementary grade levels and our seventh grade math. So what are the supports that we're providing to all of our schools? I know we have 3 federally identified schools and we have 3 state monitored schools, but we're giving support to all of them. We have evidence-based interventions at all of our schools. That means that these are critical things that we can get teachers to learn how to do. Many of them are already doing it, but we're being very intentional with which kid gets what intervention and for how long, and is it working or is it not working. Our math and science leads, as well as our reading specialists, are doing in-school professional development so that teachers can go right into the building and connect with someone who knows how to do those interventions. We also have built into our master schedule for elementary intervention time. So we have blocks of time for, it's called What I Need, our win time. So kids can get exactly what it is that they need in the areas of reading and in math, so we can kind of fill in the gaps. Completed a data analysis for each of the schools where we've planned and implemented. Teachers have 45-day plans, and with the division will get those at the end of the month and we'll review them, but they have already started working towards what it is and how they're going to remediate. We have provided PLC support at all of our schools, and then we have also had training. The division team has had training from VDOE. One of the things the extra things that we have done, additional supports, we have our federally identified schools. So we wanted to make sure we had resources that were specific to the EBIs so we could train them on that. And these are the EBIs and the resources that the state and the federal government has said, if you are a federally identified school, you must choose from this list. And these are the ones that we have chosen after teacher input as well as talking to administrators. These are the ones that we feel we can get the biggest bang for our buck on. Targeted ongoing professional development. We spent December 19th and 20th, thank you very much for those days, actually teaching every single teacher in our schools how to implement evidence-based interventions, and not just our math and reading teachers, or our math, reading, and science. We taught our health and PE teachers. We taught our chorus teachers. We taught our CTE teachers, because they can use strategies that can cross over in for math and for science and for reading. Everybody reads in a class, so let's use those same strategies to help our students. We've given math support into all of our 3 federally identified schools, specifically with a math specialist and a math coach. And then we've targeted work sessions with our administrators. We have a monthly meeting with our 3 identified federal schools, their principals, before the principals meeting, so we can talk about what it looks like. And we do one-on-one supports with them, with the entire division team, our school improvement team, to talk to them about is what we're doing in the school working, and if it's not, what can we do to support and help, and then what can we take off of your plate to help you actually focus on instruction in the building. And next steps, we're going to continue with our instructional rounds. We go back into instructional rounds starting the first week in February to all of our schools. We're meeting this week with all of our federally identified schools and their administrative teams. We go into our PLCs. That will continue and providing direct support to them. We have purchased the assessment platform called Mastery Connects that is now on current standards. So the assessment platforms that are out there, they're using old standards. Well, that doesn't help me very much. So we've just purchased for second semester Mastery Connect, which is on our new standards. We're training our division level team as well as our leads in the building, as well as our principals and our teachers, so they can create those tests for quick checks to make sure, a 5-question test as a exit ticket can help them determine what do they got to do the next day. And then we continue to have our remediation program at each school. And then Dr. Rose has developed our February PD Day, where it's a conference style, where teachers have requested specific professional development that they feel that they need to be able to hit the mark. And it will be teacher-led as well as teacher selection, so it's their choice. And I'm finished. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Dr. Norman, the 2 days for training,
Yes, sir.
how was that received?
We did a survey of each of the schools, federally identified schools and our non-federally identified schools, and it's probably the most positive set of information that we got back from teachers, where they were, especially at our federally identified schools, because they've been bombarded with training. And it was useful. They were able to go right into the classroom and do many of the things that we trained them on. It was collaborative, so it wasn't just the division coming in. It was the division partnering with administrators and partnering with teachers in the building to actually give that PD. So I was very pleased. We had a couple that just didn't want to do it, but you have those anomalies everywhere. But overall, I would have to say that I've heard nothing but thank you for letting us do this.
Very positive feedback from staff.
So if you get good training, someone will ask, when can we do that again?
Yes, they were already
So are they
asked.
asking for the second class, the second round of training?
Yeah, I have had Madison Heights, because I think they're trying to figure out if they do a 45-day plan and they do intentional direct instruction that fills in gaps, then if they go 3 weeks and it's working, is that 45-day plan still, they're going to have to adjust it.
Right, do they need to extend it,
Yes.
and where do they need to tweak
What
it?
do they need to do? And so they're requesting, each of the schools now have requested for some teacher PD time, like we can bring in a sub or something, or we can pay them after school to actually stay and adjust their 45-day plans based on the growth that they're seeing.
Now, is there anything that the board can do to make sure that this continued education helps benefits our students? What do we need to do as a board? Because we had to approve those 2 days.
You did.
And now you're talking about having them stay over, paying substitute teachers.
Which we have some grants for those. Yes,
Is there
sir.
a plan, and do we need to approve days or?
I'm not going to come to you right now and request additional
No.
days.
Right, I understand that.
But we do have grants that cover some of the subs due to the SIG grant, which is what we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
The school improvement grant that we get from the state for our failed identified schools, we have some of those grant funds that can help offset some of those costs. So, but right now, I do not anticipate coming to you saying, let's have a day.
Right.
But we will continue to work with our staff to make sure they get what they need. And the PD day on the 17th of February, some of these classes they get to choose from will be in that category as well.
Good, good. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Board, other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. On your survey, how many respondents did you have?
I can provide that to you. I don't think I brought it with me. And I'll give you a copy of those results.
Thank you, that would be great.
Board,
I
other
don't know how
questions?
many.
Not a question, but a comment. I really appreciated the teacher work days and the training, because I know that the teachers do need that. So I just find it challenging to balance quality instruction time with our students in school. I have said this before, I want to just say it again. We adjusted our school calendar, and our students are coming to school 3 days less. We've gave an extra PD prior to Christmas, and we've missed a week of school. So I think that, for me, I think that we need to be careful and balance it well, because quality instructional time is where our students meet the teacher, and that's where they're going to see gains. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days already difference from this year to last year. So to me, that's pretty significant that our kids have not been in front of their teachers for 9 additional days. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I will tell you that the, in our SIG grant, the additional time that we are paying for teachers, we've asked them before or after school. So we're not using subs on those. That is going to be beneficial for them and for them to collaborate across grade levels too. So, yes, ma'am, I'm concerned we've missed 9 days.
Okay. Mr. Childress, you have something?
Yes. So,
Oh,
a comment and a question. Go ahead.
153 responses. Yes, sir.
So my comment is, I'm very concerned about the numbers that we're seeing, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Are you concerned about these growth numbers? When I look and I see some, in the 30% growth, I'm thinking, I like those numbers, but then I'm seeing, 1%, 5%, really low numbers. And
Yes.
I understand we're testing on the whole thing, but those are extremely low numbers. And I know it's very early from when you just recently did your training and what you're implementing. But my question is, are we doing the right things? Are we making the necessary changes? Mr. asked about the elementary, and you said there were some staffing issues and stuff there. Have we addressed all of those? Because it's more than just the PD and, those things. Because, as it was said, our primary thing is how do we best educate our kids? And we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. We've got to change something. 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. So until you start changing some of those factors, you're going to get the same results. So are we making the necessary changes? Do you feel comfortable with those changes? And are we going to see the results that I think every member on this board wants to see when it comes to testing this year?
Right. I would say that there are pockets of places that both Dr. Wells and I are concerned about. And we've met, not just together, but with those administrators. And I've met with teachers as well. So overall, though, in knowing the regression that we had on the summer loss to where we currently are right now, we are moving a little bit slower than I thought we would. So we've adjusted some of the things that we put into place to help administrators as well as teachers with their lesson planning and alignment, which if a lesson isn't aligned, it's basically a waste of 50 minutes in the classroom. And so we've done some very specific work. I won't know for the next couple of weeks if what we did on the 19th and the 20th, if I'm going to see those results, because that's my next benchmark, basically. But I feel confident that I have administrators now understanding the urgency, and that they are moving like I would like them to move. Not that they weren't to begin with, it's just now we only have half of a year to get them where they need to be, so.
And I think.
Well, the reality is we weren't doing what we needed to do, or our
Or
testing.
we would have had different numbers.
Right, we'd have different results. So, and that's not casting blame on anybody,
Right.
right? Not on you guys or teachers or administrators. But we have to recognize there's a problem, and then come up with solutions and implement that. And are you guys out in the schools right now, looking, seeing these classrooms, seeing are they implementing the things that you guys were teaching during those times, and are we seeing progress in those areas?
Yes, I'm seeing progress not just in what they're putting in their lesson plan, but the instructional delivery of that lesson. It was where we had some concerns that they would write a beautiful lesson, get to class, and then, oh my, what did that look like? And did they really hit the mark at the rigor that they needed to? Not that they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but they didn't get the kids to the level of critical thinking that needed to happen. And so we're seeing more of that across the board. I would say specifically elementary in our reading with our new curriculum there.
And I think part of the 19th and 20th, the training was we were seeing things that needed to be adjusted, and that's why we went ahead and had one at that day, those 2 days, so we could make those adjustments with staff and give them new ideas and ways to incorporate instruction. So hopefully we'll see the results of that coming into January and February.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions?
Just, I have one more, and it's more of like looking forward to, I guess, early spring, and we compare these numbers right now to then. As a result of this training, what are your anticipations on where you think we're going to be?
Until I see what they're going to do in the classroom with the kids, their small group instruction, using the EBIs that we've selected. If every teacher's bought into that, I wouldn't want to even guess. I wouldn't want to lead
We would
you down a
anticipate
path.
if they do what
we're
we trained
asking?
them to do moving forward, we should see dramatic growth between now and spring.
Okay, so dramatic growth, are you talking 10%, 30% increase across the board? It's very general. I know things happen in certain specific regions, but would you say we should expect a 5% growth, 10%?
I love you, but I am so not going to give you a percentage.
Well,
It
you
just
picked
would-
this training for a reason. Obviously,
Yes, sir.
somebody else has used it or designed it, they've had results,
Yes.
right? So based on that, just observation, you have an idea of what you're thinking of. If you want to tell me off the book, that's fine.
That'll be
But
fine.
I'd like to, I'd like to have a vision in my mind what I can
Okay.
expect.
Yes, sir.
And again, I
just-
think if we can go through more details on all this individually or two by twos, if y'all want to come in and meet, we can go through very in-depth conversations about all the data, down to subgroups, individual students, et cetera,
Yeah.
per school.
And if
Be
you would
glad
like
to
to
do
see
that.
the training, I'll be more than happy to go through that with you as well. It's more hands-on, concrete representation, pictorial, summarizing, the things that are very specific and hard for us.
Yeah, I'm really more interested about the instruction.
Yes.
I mean, creating a lesson plan is one thing, having a good lesson plan, right? But as you said, implementing that lesson plan, what does that translate to for the kids? It can look good on paper, but it can be a flop in the classroom.
Right.
Correct.
So I can tell you, I got an email today from one of our administrators, a secondary administrator, not Joey back there, who, after the training this week, he's requesting 5 kidney tables because his teachers are finally understanding small group instruction is really good at secondary because they get 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 with kids, and they don't have that kind of desk and space in a secondary classroom.
You don't typically see kidney
You
tables in
do
secondary.
not, but he's asking for 5. And I'm like, we're going to find you 5 kidney tables. Not you. So I know they're trying to implement what we're asking them to do. Now it's just going in, sitting with them, modeling it, observing it, helping them with that.
Is that helping them, like, learning really how to differentiate the instruction better?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, secondary level, you know, elementary, it's all different, you know, but secondary level, you tend to get more, and you teach how you are taught sometimes, as opposed to differentiating instruction as much and doing your small group and stuff like that, because, you know, our high school guys, we don't typically go small group as much, but we know it's effective. So that's what we're trying to get people to kind of change their instructional methods, so they incorporate more of that into their instruction.
Okay, board, anything else?
The next ones are going to go really fast. So you have your next, this month's laser report. The only thing that I can kind of tell you, I didn't print it out for you. It's up on board docs, and I think it's under
Is that executive content?
executive content.
Okay.
But we did show a increase in or a decrease in our needs intervention for our attendance. Also a decrease in behavior, 7.9% across the division. And coursework went up a little bit in needs interventions in regards to coursework. And I attribute that to us just assessing kids to death, which I don't like that, but the state comes in and says we have to do certain things. So if you have any questions about that, once you read it, please feel free to give me a call or Ms. Cecil, and she'll be more than happy to walk you through laser.
Board?
Next.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing is I want to just, first of all, congratulate Dr. Wells and the staff in regards to our school improvement grants. We did 3 of them in a very short period of time, and we were awarded all 3 of them, so that was very nice. Central Elementary got $47,457 for their support on the evidence-based instruction, the instructional tools that we're doing, their professional development, and then programs that can be used for math, hands-on activities, and just supplies for teachers in the classroom that kids can use. Madison Heights using the same thing. They received $49,698, and Manellison Middle School received $49,251. So they got, each of them got really very close to about $50,000 apiece that we can use going straight to kids in the classroom.
And 50 was the max. You can get more than 50, so we're in that 49.2 to 49.9 range. So.
Wow, that's great.
The next item on the agenda is secondary textbook. You have a memo that was placed in board docs in regards to our start for our secondary literacy curriculum and textbooks. It's been about 20 years since we have had a new secondary literacy textbook. This is not something, last year you were required to adopt a curriculum for elementary reading. You are not required to adopt any textbook for secondary literacy, English or anything like that. What you are required to do is adopt or fund supplemental materials. In doing that, we would like to be able to keep elementary all the way through high school on a updated version of the curriculum. So based on what, as you go through the budget process, we're going to start the textbook process, because if we don't start it now, we're not going to get where we need to be at the end. But that's something that you need to think through and as a board determine what it is that you want to do in regards to textbooks when you're going through the budget process. And so I wanted to make sure that you understood that. We're going to give you the committee that I would like for you to approve. And then I would also like for you, I think in the last couple of board meetings, we've talked about a school board member sitting on the textbook committee, which would make life so much easier for our team. And if that's something that you would like to do and like to vote on, place a member on the team, I would appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Wells.
Yeah. Again, for this committee, I would like to have a board member be present on the committee. I think that would help with connections between what the committee's thinking and the board, and that relationship back and forth flows. So you don't have a situation where you're not fully aware of what's happening. That person could report back to the board individually or in board meetings with you. But I think it would be beneficial to have a member of the board on this committee.
Okay. So do you need a member tonight, or?
Please.
Okay, just checking. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to step forward and serve?
Willing to.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Justice?
Justice?
Thank you, Ms. Justice.
And we also need approval.
Okay.
Just consensus.
You need, that's what I was wondering. Do you need a motion, or you?
You need a motion.
I do need a motion.
Okay.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. Looking at the committee, I was wondering if the board would consider if making the schedule available to the teachers so that they can participate or engage or observe the committee textbook stuff. So you could have that
Yes.
that investment, that opportunity to provide input without necessarily being on the committee.
Yes, ma'am. We actually put, I don't know if it's on, I don't think it
No, we
is,
didn't.
a timeline together to where we've actually opened it up so we can make sure that all
Right.
secondary English teachers or any teacher who
Right.
wants to sit in,
Yeah.
not participate, but sit in on it. And they all have the opportunity to then review. But we'll take surveys and all that wonderful stuff.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
How were these committee members selected? Did they volunteer, or?
They did.
They did volunteer?
We had a couple that we actually knew that they had been through the process before, and so we reached out to them, but they could have told us no. And then we sent it out to everybody requesting anybody who wanted to participate. We can only select a certain number. And then it was whoever responded first, and then if they're a building administrator, had input into whether or not they would be a good candidate for it.
Okay. So board, we need a motion to approve this committee. Okay. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay. Any other discussion about the textbook committee? Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. I heard you say we have a limited number of people who can be on the committee.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody can observe the meetings that are held by the committee, but participating in the actual committee, I think I'd have to go back and check my standards of accreditation, but I think you can only have up to 15, something like that. We're right at the one, two. I can find that information for you.
But then you get to a point of effectiveness of a committee. If you have 80 people in there, you're not
Yeah.
getting to a
Yeah.
consensus. It's going to be very difficult.
What we try to do is make sure that we have one from each grade level. We have a reading specialist, a special education teacher, one from each of the areas. But I think you can only have 15. Almost.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate
Dr.
that.
Norman?
Next, we have Student Services and Dr. Norman.
Y'all are stuck with me again. So Mr. Neighbors is in Richmond, going through some training right now. And he wanted me to provide you with the December Best Labs report. A couple of things just to kind of give you some insight. The 2 to 5 visits, That dropped 3% over the course of this last month. It went from 21.7 down to 18.8. We did see a drop also in kids who are coming from 6 to 10 times to visit and be provided services. But where we saw the biggest growth is those frequent flyers, the kids that are just struggling considerably, and they have gone into the program and visited and been supported in receiving services. That was an increase of 6%, and going from a 53.3 to a 59.4 percentage across the board. I'll try to answer any questions that you have, but as you know, December, whenever we go out on breaks, that's always an anxious time for kids, and so we saw that.
Board, any questions?
I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Norman.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Next, we have Human Resources, Mr. Gallagher.
All right, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, good evening. Dr. Rose and I have just a few informational items and updates for you this evening, the first of which is the vacancy memo, which is a monthly memo provided, so you can take a look at that. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer it. Even though this was updated Friday of last week, there have been a couple of changes in hires even since then, so we actually have hired 2 of the 3 instructional assistants there, have 1 remaining to hire, and we've hired the full-time custodian position, so just the half-time remains. But other than that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Board, any questions for Mr. Gallagher?
Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir.
So we've just saw data showing that missing a teacher has such a great impact on our learning. So what are we doing in the future to prevent that from happening again? As far as recruiting, I don't see teachers up there. Well, I do see teachers up there, and filling those voids needs to happen pretty quickly. Or is there anything the board needs to do to get more people in here, or are you interviewing and they're not accepting for any specific reason that the board needs to look at?
Well, I don't know if there's any support that I would need to request. We are always recruiting. It's 365 days.
Correct.
Obviously, that's going to be a very heavy period coming up. We'll talk to you in a few minutes about the upcoming career fair in February. That really kicks off a very heavy emphasis on going out and recruiting, broadcasting, putting information out there, social media platforms, other ways to communicate. And yes, we are frequently interviewing. And sometimes we have to select excellent candidates, and when we do, we hire those. Not all of them accept, that's correct. This time of year, there are fewer candidates in the pool across the board, certainly for teaching positions. This is just not a time frame. You do have some December graduates, but it's relatively thin, especially in the areas that we're looking to hire in the teaching realm. Those are just not easy fills right there. You don't have a huge pool coming out in December. We actually have still been successful. So if you'd noticed, there's multiple positions in teaching that we have filled. There were multiple music positions. We're down to 1. We had a Spanish position. We got that filled. So we are actually, having good success in a lot of areas. So it is a constant, ongoing emphasis of ours. So I think we're taking excellent steps to recruit, hire, and retain our effective employees, both in the professional and the support staff realm. I think that area, as far as support staff recruiting and retention, has ramped up now as well as a part of our comprehensive plan and so forth. And so I hope to see gains there as well. But thank you.
All right, so are other schools doing recruiting from within where, let's say we have a senior that hasn't exactly picked out their career field and we said, okay, this is what you have to do to become a teacher.
Yeah.
If you make these steps, we'll help finance your education. If you sign a 5-year contract, is there something like that going on at any school, and are we doing
Well,
it?
we're doing that, and I'm sure other schools are. The Teachers for Tomorrow programs, the Grow Your Own programs, the partnerships with the community college and other local universities. for programs like that that actually reduce some of the costs with that. And certainly we love to have, and you see over time, we do end up having quite a few teachers and other folks who are Amherst graduates come back to us. So I think we've been strong in that area.
So with the recruiting program like that, how many current teachers do we have that have been through that program?
I don't have numbers on that. I can look into that. And I can certainly look into the number of current teachers who are Amherst grads, as well as those that
I
have
just
been
want
in
to make sure
programs like that.
a program like that, if it does produce good teachers,
Sure.
then maybe we need to invest a little more time and opportunity in that program to make sure we don't have teachers positions we can't fill.
Right. And I don't think it's a weakness. I do think we're taking a lot of effort.
Teachers for Tomorrow, our current Teachers for Tomorrow program started about 2 or 3 years ago. So those seniors that would have gone through it are still in college. They haven't come back yet. But we do have a very high percentage of our teachers are graduates of Amherst County Public Schools. So I think as we continue to grow our Teachers for Tomorrow program and they matriculate through college, we'll start seeing that return on the investment.
Return on investment.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Look forward to seeing that.
Absolutely.
Along those same lines with Scalar, have we looked at, like I know some school divisions have created kind of a pipeline with their recruiting their IAs and giving them a pathway to become a teacher.
We do. We looked at multiple pathways with that, and there's been numerous occasions we look at, with universities like JMU, who might have partnerships with local community college to reduce the tuition for individuals. Hopefully you have individuals with a baseline of an associate's degree, but you can actually bring people into that realm even less than that with some cohorts. But what ends up happening, we do provide a lot of those opportunities, and in a lot of cases, even with the reduction in the cost, it becomes cost prohibitive, and there's very few that take advantage of it. The iTeach program that we're now partners with has helped in that realm. We've had numerous, and I can get you numbers on that. We had several individuals who were instructional assistants who have gone through the iTeach process and ultimately gotten licensed that way and then become teachers with us. So that's been productive, and that remains out there as an option for folks. And typically with that process, you're looking at individuals that have a bachelor's degree already, but they don't have the teaching license. So there's multiple pathways. We've worked with Liberty University, who's creating a new route, partnering with CVCC to do some further grow your own programs that are similar to that, as well as offering even further opportunities for our high schoolers to become teachers with us in a grow your own program. So always looking at those, always using our university partners and seeing every way we can expand in that area. So they're good ideas.
I know Grand Canyon has a good program as well that I think it accommodates both. Some that if they already have a 2-year degree or if you're starting out from scratch.
Right. Yeah, there are several of those that are accredited programs and online that offer relatively low-cost online options, and we do forward that information out from those folks as we receive that and try to promote that with individuals that are still looking to grow and become licensed. We're looking at every route. So
Mr. Rossi, we have 13 students enrolled in Teachers for Tomorrow right now.
I like to hear that. Good.
Okay.
Board, anything else? Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move on to a calendar committee update. As you all know, we've been looking to create a draft calendar for the 2025-26 school year. This is the time to be doing that. We initially put out a survey on November 12th, requesting input from all of our stakeholders. Those results that we found from that, we used that to create a second draft. We tried to address most of the prominent priorities that were identified in responses to the first survey, and we did create a second survey. The second survey was sent out on January 8th, and that provided 2 draft options, and I think you all probably received that. The first draft was the initial calendar draft that we had put out, and the second one incorporated the revisions based on the feedback from the initial survey. So we've left that open until January 22. So we'll take the results of that survey, and with that information, provide that to the superintendent, and we'll have to decide, we'll have to consider that input and decide based on that feedback which draft to go with. But our intention is to provide you all with a draft, our proposal, for a first read in the February board meeting. So,
And both calendars are based on 180 days, Ms. Thompson.
absolutely. That was a baseline priority. So any questions with that, I'm happy to address.
Board, any questions for Mr. Gallagher?
Mr. Gallagher, do
Yes,
we know
ma'am.
the number of respondents?
I do, well, I mean, I do, but I had to pull that information up. So I think we're like in the 297 range, something like that. Well, we can find that pretty quickly. While I'm giving you my next update, we'll look into that, so. Okay? We're good? All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
So next, I just wanted to update you. As you know, we're looking to propose a potential sick leave bank for eligible employees. We did put that survey out on December 3rd, trying to determine the interest of the eligible employees and who would like to enroll in that. So it was an open enrollment period for that. So we have in ACPS 369 employees eligible to participate in that bank. We would need a third of those individuals to determine that they wanted to enroll in the program to make it viable and sustainable with the donation of a sick day and for that to continue to maintain appropriately, which is, a third of we would need a third of those folks. Only 47 eligible employees expressed interest to enroll in the program, which is well below the necessary number. It was well short of the 33% required to initiate the sick bank. So at this point, we are going to discontinue those efforts to initiate a sick leave bank at this time, but I'll take any questions related to that as well.
Okay. Board, any questions?
Okay. And I'll follow up to say we had 250 respondents to the calendar survey thus far. And again, those that are out there and listening, it is open through the 22nd, so please do give us your input.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gallagher, just a quick question about sick leave bank.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that was a gallant effort, and I think a lot of teachers probably would have appreciated it. I know you said you're going to just put it on hold. Is it something that you will bring back up periodically, or
Well,
is it just
potentially.
sort of going to die?
It is potentially, you could bring that back. You could take another run at that if you would. But it is for eligible employees, and those are folks that are in Plan 1 and Plan 2 of the VRS program. The hybrid members are not eligible for that. They have different benefits that are provided to them that make it really less of a need. And so therefore, as those individuals are going to reduce, the Plan 1 and 2 will reduce over time. I anticipate the viability is going to also reduce, in the future. So,
Board, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'll turn it over to Dr. Rose.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and all board members. I'm just going to give you a summary of some upcoming activities going on in the division. Tomorrow, January 16th at 6 p.m., we're going to be celebrating our exceptional educators with our Teacher and Support Staff of the Year recognition dinner. This event is going to be held at Sweetbriar at the Wells Conference Center, and of course, all board members are invited to attend. Your names will be at the gate to ease in you getting on campus and getting to the center. Next week, January 19th and the 25th, we are going to be observing Virginia School Principal Appreciation Week. And we have a lot of things that we have goodies set up in the SAO office, and we're going to be celebrating them and opportunity to recognize them for their dedication and leadership within the division. And then lastly, again, I just want to remind you about the ACPS Career Fair that's going to be held here from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Our career fair is going to be, we have already communicated information to our local colleges, people who have already registered online, and we're just keeping them in the loop so that we can engage with some new people and individuals and bring them on to Team Amherst. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mr. Terry?
Board, yes, sir.
How many have pre-registered?
Right now, the last number was like 18.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Board, any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Rose.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Dr. Wells?
Moving on, we have Superintendent's Matters. So first reminder, Statement of Economic Interest is due by February 3rd. Please make sure you get that done so you don't get fined. If you need assistance, let us know. We'll be glad to help you. The community dinner is scheduled for January 28th at 6 p.m. That'll be at the Madison Heights Community Center. And so we look forward to having that evening. This year, we're going to focus on the some more drug intervention type activities with the basically the hidden in plain sight. And they're going to set that up, and so parents can kind of go through that. We'll have activities for the children, for the younger folks over here, and we'll have a hidden in plain sight room over here, so the parents can go through that and kind of get an idea of what kind of things are out there they need to be keeping their eyes open for, especially for our elementary and middle school students as parents, as they start having their kids age and start getting in some of these other clandestine activities. Be good for them to know what to look out for. So we're going to have that set up this year as well. I want to hit inclement weather for you a little bit, and just know that, last week, this is really rare to have snow on the ground from a 4-inch snowstorm, and it's still here today, a week and a half later. But that did impact us last week. Moving forward, now that students are back in school and they have their Chromebooks and other types of equipment back, if we have another extended storm where we're out of school for an extended period of time, we will be doing more remote learning, so it's just not a complete time down. But we really couldn't do that last week because the Christmas break, the Chromebooks stayed at school because parents didn't want the Chromebooks coming home. So the majority of Chromebooks were at school, so we couldn't really do that electronic type of instruction. But we will, if we have a storm that hits when we're out of school, 3, 4, 5, 6 days or whatever, again, we'll start doing some remote instruction just to make sure we're not losing that much instructional time.
Dr. Wells, how many of those days can we have a year?
We can have 10 right now. There is a waiver we can apply for the State Superintendent of Instruction if we need to go more, if there was a major event. Right now you can do 10 unplanned remote learning days. Questions on that? Okay. Next week, it is supposed to be really cold. So I'm just going to say, if our kind of line we look at for going delayed school or on-time school is wind chills below 0, or air temperatures in the low single digits, or wind chill advisory or cold weather advisory. If we have those advisories or we have single-digit lows or wind chills below 0, we may do a 2-hour delay based on, because our students get the sun up. People have a little sun on their face versus in the cold, in the dark. So if we have that type of situation, we may have to call a 2-hour delay. But again, that's case dependent, and we'll tackle that when we get there. But I want you to be aware of that. The VSBA Capital Conference is January 27th and 28th in Richmond. First Lady Youngkin and Lieutenant Governor Sears are the keynote speakers. And it's the afternoon of January 27th, and it's the morning of the 28th. The 28th, there is a Capitol. You get to go to the state Capitol and meet your legislators. If you want to do that, we can make arrangements for you. But we need to make that decision pretty quick because it's coming up. We need to make sure we get hotel rooms if that's necessary. So if anyone wants to do the Capitol Conference on the 27th and 28th, please let Ms. McNerney and I know so we can make the proper arrangements. Okay. Are there any? That's all I have. Any questions?
Okay, board, any questions for Dr. Wells? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, so moving on to committee reports, and we'll do the individuals. Yes, ma'am.
Harry, actually, I do have a question.
Okay.
For Dr. Wells. Last school board meeting, we talked about doing a special meeting regarding the legislative positions
Yes.
and what Amherst wants to do. Have I missed an email on that?
We sent an email out asking for you to choose dates. We've heard from 4 board members, and nobody had the same date.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we're waiting to hear from the other 3 members who had not responded, and then we can see what dates are close, and we'll send some other dates out to kind of get some consensus.
Sure.
Okay, board, respond to the email there, so we can get a good date. All righty, so we'll do reports. And Ms. Saunders, we could start with you this time.
I don't like to be the leader of the pack.
There you go.
Mr. Terry, Mr. Childress, thank you for stepping up. I know how much time this takes. And Ms. Thompson, thank you for your past leadership. I know it's a lot of time involved in all of this, so thank you both, all 3 of you. I look forward to all the data and maybe the 2-on-2, a little more explanation for the newbie. And congratulations on the grants. I know that's a huge relief. A little extra spending money goes a long way. So thank you all. Thanks for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
All for me.
Mr. Rossi?
All right, Happy New Year, everybody. I know it's a new year, but we're still halfway through a school year. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. It was nice seeing the improvements and comparing the data. I mean, showing that shows our successes as well as our weaknesses. And having that data will help us move forward, hopefully. I'm just hoping for a big jump. I really am. I'm hoping that we rose to the occasion. And I'd like to hear the feedback. I would like to see, maybe after it's been implemented, maybe having another survey, and hopefully we'll get a real good turnout and see what their assessment of the impact was. And I want to keep moving forward because that's what we have to do, right? And I know we've done a lot with our budget, and we're going to have to tighten it up somewhere, and we're going to work through it, and we're going to get by. We're going to make it happen. I'm excited to see the addition and the works going on at the high school. I believe the ball field's going to want some of their dirt back. I believe it's sitting on a Ford truck out there. Someone better take that back down to the ball field. Oh, well. And, you know, it's good to see, you know, some changes on the board moving around. It's good for everybody, I think. Everybody's happy. And looking forward to serving out another year here in Amherst County.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Justice?
Thank you, sir. Board of Governors School did not meet this month. As we heard from Janasia, we have some middle schoolers that are going to be visiting the school, and that's pretty exciting. We did have one student withdraw for next year, but we have other students that are looking at that opportunity. So that's pretty cool. I really appreciate the 2x2 opportunity with data, and I really appreciate, Dr. Wells, your opening up Fridays to meet with you and collaborate and have good interactions there. As far as survey results, maybe we could do those who participate, maybe we could have a $100 gift card or a King's Dominion pass they could be drawn for, just to get some more engagement there, you know. And I'll just let you guys just say to those listening, you know, to staff and teachers, parents, if you don't respond to the surveys, we don't know what you're thinking, and we really want to hear what you would like to see. So if we can incentivize that, that would be great. I'm just, one of the things that just really stood out to me is that this break, we had loss, but we didn't have any catastrophic loss of life as we have had the past couple of years. And I'm just really thankful that we haven't had any accidents in the storm or just anything bad like that. So I'm just really celebrating that and thankful for another year, and really thankful for every member on this board. Thanks.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes, I'd like to say how much I'm thankful for the data that we've received tonight. I know that not all of it was what we wanted to see, but we are seeing some growth, and I just appreciate it. That's a lot of effort to get that together. But I also appreciate the 2x2 data meetings in which we can really just sort of dig in and understand it better. So that's going to be very helpful. Two, I know budget season is really tough. Appreciate the efforts that you're doing there. I think it's going to be important that we look at our essential staffing and maybe our per pupil expenditures. But I know that you guys are working hard and will get us there. So looking forward to the next few months on that one. Also like to extend our sympathy to the family of Mr. Christian and just thank them for his work and his service here for our family. I was excited about the progress on the building. It's really coming together, so I appreciate that. Principal Appreciation Week is coming up on January 19th, so let me just say how much we do appreciate you, Dr. Crawford, and all of the principals. So board members, you know, I'm sure that we all need to take time to remember to say thank you to them. And our exceptional educators, thank you, Dr. Wells, and for your staff for taking time to just recognize them, because they work so hard and sometimes they get overlooked, and it's just an extra step that you can go. So thank you. I look forward to that. And I'm looking forward to the community dinner on the 28th because they've all been fantastic. I hope we have some great participation from the community. So encourage you, everybody who's watching, to make sure that you contact the schools and let them know that you can come. It's a night worth coming. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ligon?
I think everybody said great things, and I'm quiet tonight because it's a quiet time. It's cold for one thing outside, so I don't do well in January. But congratulations on you gentlemen. Thank you. Thank everybody for your committee reports and governing schools and STEM academies, and we're going to go back out there and see what we can do. We haven't had any lower board meetings either. As far as VSBA concerned, you all have been getting your emails about that. Legislative positions coming up again, and J.T. Kessler can be reached. And I'm going to try to do a better job of starting in February maybe to bring those to our attention. But thank you, Dr. Wells, for good judgment on not going to school. I mean, it's ice everywhere. People are falling down, and orthopedic surgeons are making extreme amount of money because I'm over there watching it. I'm just saying that these roads, some people ask goofy questions about why, and I said, let me just take you on a trip. Let's go up 60 where I used to live, and the roads of ice is don't. So we thank you for all. You always have been considered, you and Dr. Houghton and all this team that's out there. Yeah, well, you know, we don't even have to do that because it's just common sense that it's icy out there, and I appreciate, you can't take a bicycle around some of those roads, much less one of those big passenger buses. So it's always worth saying thank you for that. It's safety, and something you said when I was talking to you, which I hadn't thought of, I had and I hadn't. It's not just the buses and the drivers and the children, it's the kids who drive to school. Sometimes we don't think about the young adults who drive to school and haven't quite learned yet how to take that foot up off that gas pedal when it's ice, like myself. I remember Gary, my husband, long story short, you said, don't brake on ice. You know, I'm like, why? The first thing you do, he said, don't brake, please, let your foot up. So I thank you for thinking of the young people who drive up there. Did go to basketball game last night, had a lot of fun, good to see people out and about, eat a little popcorn. I'm no stress, so I love it that way. It's no stress whatsoever, everybody play it. But we're gonna get out a little bit more, but things are good, and I didn't do a lot of talking about the numbers tonight. I think I've said in the past, I like to see growth. That word is kind of a funny, long word. Maybe I'd like to see more, but I think we're doing the best we can. Is that all we can ask, is that teachers and everybody do the best they can. But keeping in mind, not making too many excuses for non-growth. You know, we'll listen to that, but, you know, I think someone said it quite well. If there's something that can be fixed to get things better within our means, we can try to do that. Teaching and instruction, as one of the speakers said tonight, that is my priority now. The achievement gaps to be closed if possible, or else bring them a little closer together. So I'll be looking at that, and I probably won't do a 2x2 or one-on-one, but I'll be looking at them at home, and I'll just email you if I see anything. But we appreciate everything. The budget is so exciting. We just did it. We just did it. I just slept. Didn't we just do the budget?
Yep. Yes.
And that word is back. So I have no problems. I mean, you got this, don't you? Yeah, I listen to the governor and all these things early in the morning, but you got it. So, but we're here to help you with our little, I have to laugh sometimes because I know we just did the budget. And here it is again. That's it. Happy New Year.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Childress.
Well, I wanted to thank the board for your confidence in me as vice chair, and I hope I can live up to the expectations and, you know, ultimately, you know, serve our community and serve the school division and helping to be the best that we can be. So thank you for that. The STEM Academy did not meet over break, so nothing new to report there. And I will forward you the last set of minutes that I have, and so you can be prepared for the next meeting for that. I did want to thank you, Dr. Norman, Dr. Wells, for the data. It is, I know it's a lot to put that stuff together, but it is very beneficial, I think, for us board members to be able to see that. It really helps to, you know, give me some guidance as well. So I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, board, I would like to thank you for your vote of confidence. Like Mr. Childress just said, you see something in me that I don't, so thank you very much. And Mr. Childress, thank you for accepting this position. Look forward to working with you. It's going to be great. Ms. Thompson, thank you for your time. It's been great. Enjoyed serving as co-chair with you. So I don't have a committee, but I did go, we did have the Board of Supervisors come to the high school and do a very nice walk around not too long back. It was good to see them seeing how things are coming at the high school. And it's good for us to go see it. So if you get a chance, if you haven't been by, get somebody to walk you through it. It's impressive to actually stand there and see it, knowing where it was, what, year and a half ago?
This time a year ago.
This time a year ago?
We hadn't poured concrete yet.
Okay, so it's amazing how far that thing's come. Looks really, really good. I did get to go to the play that they had at the high school, and you know, like I said, if you haven't been to one of the Amherst County High School plays, go. Especially see it in the old auditorium before we switch over to the new, and I think you will really get an eye opener once you get to that larger stage. Dr. Wells, thank you for the opportunity for everybody to call you on Friday and get together. For those who took part in it, thank you for showing time and getting with Dr. Wells. For those of you who didn't, it's a good time to be able to just have a good conversation, just one-on-one with Dr. Wells about some things maybe you just want to get off your chest or see where things are. So please take advantage of that. Thank you for those from the public who did come to speak tonight. We appreciate hearing everybody's opinion. We can't do anything if we don't have those opinions. So thank you very much. And I am excited about possibility of getting a Verizon cell tower. I mean, I know our county, we've got a lot of dead zones. We want our community to speak up. We're more than willing to do what our community wants us to do. You voted for us. We're here for you. So we've got the space. I think we can make it happen well, but don't need putting it there if the community doesn't want it. So I want to make sure. I do live in one of those zones where I could use one myself, so I throw that out there.
I'd put it on my property if I could.
And I do want to reiterate, the snow week that the kids had off. For people who are not from here and live in Madison Heights, they don't realize what some of the roads are like in some of our far reaches of our county. And it is impressive to see how much snow is still impacting our roads, my driveway, various places. So, and it is like Ms. Ligon said, it is very easy to end up in a bad spot getting on that ice. So on foot, on tires or whatever. So please be careful out there, and that little bit of snow that's left is still wreaking havoc. Temperatures are not going to help us, and we got a good 6 more weeks before we hit March. So, but thank you guys for all the reports. You always provide us plenty of information. And board, if there's extra things that you need to answer questions, be sure and contact them directly and get what you need. So with that, I'm about done. So thank you all very much.
Okay.
Now,
I get to read something in a second.
Go for it.
All right. Well, before I do read my statement, I do want to thank Jill Will and Ruth Matheny for compiling a lot of the data, that 56-page document that you have, and they did a lot of that work. So we want to thank them for taking the time to do that and pulling that data together for us. Now, pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 and A2 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following: A1 personnel matters and A2 student matters.
Okay. So I need a motion. Board, I need a motion.
Motion to go into closed session?
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.